Hey guys, tonight we're drifting down the Nile. Not the part full of cruise ships and Instagram filters, but the real Nile, thick with floodwater and mosquito serenades. You're not here to sightsee. You're here to work, and nap occasionally, but mostly work. It's the season when the river forgets its manners and swells like it owns the place, spilling over fields and footpaths and filling every clay jug you forgot to bring inside. The mud creeps in under doorways. Frogs yell at each other like tiny drunk philosophers, and your best pair of sandals has already floated away. Somewhere out there, a crocodile is using them as a chew toy. You'll never see them again. You live in a Nubian pottery village, meaning your house is probably older than most nations, and your daily life is sculpted by clay, smoke, and whatever the river decides to bless or destroy. It's beautiful, really. Except when you sit down without checking for frogs first. You, my friend, have survived 3 flood seasons so far. And according to Auntie Dura's calendar, scratched into a piece of bark, this one's supposed to be especially enthusiastic. Whatever that means. You're already ankle deep in what used to be a footpath. Your neighbor claims this is good luck. He says that about everything, though. Last week, he called dropping a hot coal down his tunic a sign from Horus. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what time is it over there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up just as the sky starts turning that particular kind of soft gray that means get up or risk being yelled at. Your hut smells like ash, clay, and last night's lentil stew. Outside, someone's already shouting about buffalo tracks. Again. There's always a buffalo. The sound of floodwater murmurs nearby, the way a giant might whisper secrets into a reed bed. You step outside, carefully, because the mud is doing that thing where it pretends to be solid, then eats your foot like a hungry sponge. Your cousin greets you with the enthusiasm of a slightly damp towel. Water's up 2 arm lengths since yesterday, she says, scratching at the clay drying on her forearm. Good for the crops, bad for your laundry. You glance at the linen sheet still drying on the rooftop, or trying to. At this point, it's more atmosphere than fabric. The village is alive in that sluggish, purposeful way, like a sleepy animal stretching after a long nap. Kids splash through puddles with the intent to get as muddy as legally possible. Someone yells for help, lifting a water jug. Somewhere, a goat is chewing something it shouldn't. You wander toward the edge of the settlement, past rows of low huts with gently curved walls and soot-kissed chimneys. Clay pots line the footpaths like sleepy sentries. Most are empty now, waiting for today's labor to fill them again. And there it is. The river. Vast, brown, unapologetic. You stand there, arms crossed, and remember last year's flood. The one that brought 3 eels into your sleeping mat and a mysterious lump of driftwood that everyone swore looked like the goddess Hathor. You named it Susan. Susan now lives in your firewood pile. This year's water is calmer, so far. You squint at the surface, half expecting it to rise another cubit just to spite you. It hasn't yet, but it knows you're watching. A familiar splash behind you breaks the moment. Old Bakir, shirtless and grinning, is already up to his knees in the water, trying to catch a slippery fish with a basket and optimism. Flood season started, he hollers unnecessarily. Time to remember who can swim and who just pretends. You pretend, definitely pretend. As you turn to head back, a loud squelch reminds you that your left sandal has officially decided to retire, sucked off your foot by a particularly enthusiastic puddle. You wiggle your toes and sigh. That was the good one, too. Back in the village, Your uncle is standing on a stool, tying herbs to his doorway, like some kind of anti-crocodile charm. He nods sagely. The water will rise until it doesn't, he says. And then it'll stop, or keep going, but probably stop. You blink at him. Thanks. He blinks back. You're welcome. There's something sacred about this time, this moment before the real work begins. When the water is still a guest, not yet a trespasser. The air is thick with possibility. And also gnats. Historically speaking, these floodwaters are the reason Egypt and Nubia exist at all. Without them, no crops, no irrigation, no gods fattened on grain and beer. Just desert and dashed hopes. Scholars call this hydraulic civilization. You call it mud season. But the interesting thing, most people don't know the Nubians managed this dance with the Nile long before the pharaohs got their gold-plated sandals wet. Some archaeologists argue that Nubian communities pioneered flood-adaptive pottery methods, designing wide-bottomed jars that stayed stable on damp surfaces. Of course, some historians still debate whether that's accurate. Others say it was just good guesswork and slippery hands. Either way, your ancestors knew clay and water better than most. You wander past the communal fire pit, where a pile of yesterday's failed pots has been lovingly arranged into what one child calls the sad tower. You add a broken handle to the top, giving it a jaunty tilt. The morning moves on. Somewhere in the reeds, frogs begin their symphony. Children shriek as someone discovers a fish in a cooking pot. And the air takes on that damp warmth that means the sun is about to get personal. Today, the river has arrived. Tomorrow, who knows? But for now, you've got clay to fetch, pots to shape, and a frog in your drinking jar. Just another day in paradise. You step around the frog again. It's still in your jar, still smug. You left it there yesterday, thinking it would hop out. It didn't. Now it's just watching you. A tiny green judge with damp feet and zero shame. You swallow and reach for a different jar. It smells faintly of garlic and regret, but it's dry and, most importantly, frog-free. That's good enough. Your hut is starting to steam a little, the thatch roof already collecting heat like it's got a grudge. Outside, the morning light turns from buttery gold to full-on furnace glow. There's a brief window, maybe an hour, where the village is awake but not fully sweaty. That window is closing. Fast. You shuffle toward the workyard, where the air is already thick with dust and purpose. Pottery in this village isn't just a craft, it's a birthright. You could probably mold a drinking bowl before you could walk. Maybe you did. There's definitely a suspiciously lopsided cup on your family's shelf everyone claims was early you. Around you, the clay crew's already at it. Your cousin Hani is elbow deep in a mixing trough, churning clay and water with the solemn dedication of someone making soup for a very picky god. Her arms are coated in gray sludge. Her hair is tied up with a bit of twine that used to be part of a net. She looks majestic, like a swamp queen. Morning, you offer, stepping beside her. Late, she says without looking. She's not wrong. You were supposed to help an hour ago, but the frog situation was, well, complex. You drop to your knees beside the pit and scoop up a handful of clay. It's cool, dense, and pleasantly squishy, like pudding with ambition. This batch feels good. Smooth, but not soupy. You start kneading it into shape, thumb and palm moving automatically. It's a rhythm your hands remember, even when your brain is still somewhere between dreams and breakfast. As you work, the first joke of the day arrives. How many potters does it take to fix a cracked kiln? Hani asks. You groan. How many? Just one, but 6 more to argue about the clay type, and 2 elders to blame the stars. You smirk. You forgot the one who brings dates instead of help. That's you. Fair. The work is soothing, in a slightly back-breaking, finger-numbing sort of way. You and Hani shape and roll, occasionally elbowing each other when someone's bowl starts looking more like a collapsed hat than a container. Pottery here isn't just functional, it's personality. Every household has a style, a flair. Your aunt's pots always have that slight swirl near the rim. Your neighbor insists on painting tiny ducks on the bottom of everything. No one knows why, probably not even him. Most people assume all ancient pottery looks the same. Brown, cracked, vaguely bowlish. But in Nubia, centuries ago, things were different. Bright red slipcoats, deep burnish marks, incised decorations so precise they'd shame your best attempt at a doodle. Some even say Nubian potters were the first to design clay stamps to impress repeating patterns. Others argue Egypt got the idea first, and everything south just copied it. But again, historians never agree on anything, except maybe that frogs in jars are never ideal. The sun climbs higher, and the shade from the pottery shed shrinks like a startled cat. You pause to stretch, your back protesting with a series of heroic crackles. At that moment, the buffalo arrives. It does this every morning. You don't know who it belongs to. You don't know why it loves you. But it shows up, snorts loudly, and then rubs its scratchy flank against your drying rack. Hani snorts. Your boyfriend's back. He's not my type. The buffalo snorts again and knocks over 2 pots. Hani gives you a pointed look. You respond with your most mature rebuttal, sticking out your tongue. Eventually, the buffalo loses interest and plods away towards someone else's property line. Hopefully. You turn back to your clay and start forming the larger vessels. These are the hardest, heavy, finicky, prone to slumping just when you think they're done. It's like sculpting wet sand while a gnat whispers doubt into your ear. Still, you've gotten better over the years. Your first attempt collapsed so dramatically, your uncle tried to use it as a bird bath. Today, your rim work holds. Your walls are even. Hani even gives you a nod. That's practically a love letter. As the morning drifts on, the air grows thicker. The fire kiln hasn't been lit yet, but it's waiting, looming. Its wide mouth gapes like it knows your back will be sore by evening. Pottery villages like yours have been scattered along the Nile for thousands of years. Some are gone, swallowed by sand or water or time. Others thrive in quiet, stubborn ways. Each one shaped by the river, the seasons, and the personalities of the people who wake up covered in clay. There's a kind of pride in that. A slow-burn joy that comes from creating something useful, beautiful, and surprisingly difficult. Your pots will carry water, hold grain, store dates. They'll outlast you. Maybe. Maybe one day, someone will dig one up and wonder who made it. They'll study the shape, the markings, the finger-pressed ridges on the bottom. And they'll never guess you once dropped it because you sneezed while a mosquito landed on your nose. You lift your newest pot into the sun and squint. It's good. Solid. Handsome. You even managed a little spiral at the base. Hani leans over, squints at it, and grunts in approval. High praise. Nearby, a kid starts yelling something about giant fish in the flooded field. You glance at Hani. Break time? She shrugs. Fish time. You both stand, stretch, and leave the pots to dry in the sun, at least until the buffalo comes back. You hope it doesn't. But it will. It always does. Breakfast is not glamorous. It's a shard of yesterday's barley flatbread, slightly damp from the humidity, and a smear of mashed lentils that's trying its best to be food. You eat it anyway, because you're not fancy, and also because the alternative is nothing. You sit cross-legged near the shade of the pottery shed, squinting at the sun as it wrestles its way up the sky. Already, the light has that harsh, too confident glare that says, you're going to sweat through everything you own today. Next to you, your cousin Malik is wrestling with the world's angriest buffalo. Again. To be clear, it's not his buffalo. No one claims it. It just exists, like humidity and taxes. It showed up one season and never left. Most of the village has decided to tolerate it. Some have named it. You've suggested exile, but no one listened. Today, Malik made the mistake of wearing a tunic that smells vaguely of fermented figs. The buffalo apparently has strong opinions about that. You chew and watch the standoff. Maybe don't smell like dessert, you offer. Malik glares at you. It's laundry day. You said that 3 days ago. It's still laundry day. He dodges a horn and retreats behind a drying rack. The buffalo snorts triumphantly and trundles off to chew someone else's fence. You shake your head, finish your breakfast, and rinse your fingers in a shallow bowl of floodwater. The water's warm and smells like riverweed and mosquito dreams. You don't drink it, obviously. You're not that local. Across the path, Aunt Dura is boiling something that used to be soup and is now closer to a science experiment. She stirs it with a carved stick, muttering under her breath in a tone that could curdle milk. She catches you looking. It's for the spirits, she says. You nod solemnly. Of the living or the dead? Depends who eats it. The village is wide awake now. Children are racing through the mud with sandals in hand and absolutely no concern for future injuries. Someone's shouting about a goat in the bean jar. Someone else is chasing said goat with a broom. It's a beautiful mess. You pick up a small pot you finished yesterday, your favorite one, the one with the wavy pattern around the neck. It's light, well-balanced, and entirely yours. You're planning to trade it later for a piece of dried fish, or maybe a reed basket that doesn't leak. Pottery, in your world, is currency. Not the shiny kind that jingles and disappears. The kind that holds water, feeds neighbors, stores grain, and sometimes, if you're lucky, impresses a visiting merchant enough to scribble your name in his little wax tablet. Not that you're aiming for fame. Mostly, you just want to avoid working in the swamp fields. Those leeches are too enthusiastic. As you head toward the river to rinse the dust from your hands, a familiar sound stops you. Hooves, bells, and the unmistakable squelch of leather on wet earth. The buffalo is back, with a new friend. You blink. It's a calf. Just as muddy, just as opinionated. You sigh and step aside as they trundle past, aiming for the shade where someone's laundry flaps bravely on a line. Goodbye, clean linen. You had a good run. You continue your walk towards the main path, passing the communal cooking pit, where 3 aunties are currently arguing about the proper thickness of bean porridge. Loudly, one of them threatens to throw a spoon. Another one dares her. You keep walking. The river is higher today, its edge tickling the bottom of the boat ramp and bringing with it gifts. A soggy sandal, not yours. A driftwood log shaped like a hippo, and a suspiciously smug duck. You sit on the ramp, dipping your feet in the cool water. The mud squishes between your toes in a way that's almost therapeutic. Until something wriggles past your heel, and you pretend it was just a stick. You glance up at the tree line. Birds chatter in the canopy, and the distant hum of insects creates a constant background song. It's peaceful, in a chaotic, buzzing, frog-infested sort of way. You close your eyes for a moment and listen to the laughter, the arguments, the distant thump of a dropped pot, the rise and fall of voices as the village stumbles through its morning chaos. It's not silent, it's not perfect, but it's yours. Historically speaking, many ancient Nubian villages like this one were centered around communal cooperation, shared ovens, mutual irrigation, rotational harvests. Some archaeologists even argue that Nubian pottery styles traveled upriver before Egyptian influence ever reached them. Others say that's probably wishful thinking, classic historian drama. Still, one thing's certain. Life here revolves around more than just clay. It's rhythm. It's relationships. It's the buffalo you never asked for, but now secretly worry about if it doesn't show up. You open your eyes and catch sight of Malik, now holding a broom and wearing a victorious grin. The buffalo and calf are gone. For now. You wave at him. He waves back, then immediately steps in a puddle and curses creatively. You smile. You stand, and you head back up the path. There's still work to do, and the sun is only just getting started. The clay pit smells like wet hope and old sandals. It's nestled just beyond the outer fence of the village, where the floodwater's been kind enough to stop, but not before turning the surrounding field into a squelchy mess of knee-high grass and invisible ankle traps. You step carefully, because yesterday you sank up to the shin and had to be rescued by an extremely judgmental 10-year-old with a stick. Your cousin Zahi is already there, shirt tied around his head like a regrettable turban, kneeling beside the pit and muttering under his breath. You recognize the tone. It's the universal language of, "This batch better not be full of worms again." "Morning," you call out. Zahi looks up. "You're late. You're grumpy." We're both right. You slide down the gentle slope to the pit's edge. The clay is darker here, rich with silt from the Nile, and flecks of organic matter that give it that lovely smell you'll politely call earthy. It squelches underfoot, warm and sticky, like pudding that went to school for engineering. The trick, as always, is finding the right balance. Not too wet, not too dry, not too full of surprise pebbles that make your pots explode mid-fire. Zahi passes you a small basket, and you begin the search, scooping, pressing, testing. You could do this blindfolded by now, which is good, because the sun is trying its best to blind you anyway. Overhead, ibis birds flap lazily through the sky. One of them lands nearby and watches you with that particular bird stare that says, "I might steal your breakfast or your soul. Haven't decided yet." "You ever wonder if we're just worms to them?" Zahi asks, breaking the silence. "No," you say. He nods solemnly. "Me neither." You work in companionable grumbling for a while, filling baskets with clay, hauling them to the top of the pit, and dumping them into sun-bleached troughs for processing. The mud coats your hands, arms, and eventually, somehow, your neck. You'll be scrubbing it off for days. As you rinse your hands in a nearby puddle, you notice a strange shimmer near the pit wall. You lean in. It's a frog. But not just any frog. This one is enormous, pale green with gold speckles and eyes like tiny dinner plates. It blinks slowly, as if to say, "Yes, mortal, I am aware of my majesty." "Zahi," you whisper. "What?" "We have a new pottery god." He looks over, sees the frog, freezes. Then he bows, low, dramatically. "Your Excellency," he murmurs. You join him, half joking but half serious. After all, in Nubian folklore, frogs are omens, harbingers of change, messengers from the river gods, and occasional rain request assistance. It depends who you ask. Aunt Dura says they're sacred. Your uncle says they taste like chicken. The frog blinks again, then hops directly into a half-filled clay basket, settles in, and closes its eyes. "Well," Zahi says, standing up. "He lives here now. Do we name him?" "Obviously." You both agree on Thutmud. With the sacred frog now supervising operations, you return to work with renewed enthusiasm, or at least slightly less existential dread. As the morning creeps toward midday, other potters arrive. Your neighbor Sana, with her twin daughters, who immediately begin mud-slapping each other. A quiet boy from downriver who never speaks but makes the best slip glaze you've ever seen. And old Naeem, who claims he once made a pot so perfect it exploded from jealousy. "Too beautiful for this world," he says whenever someone doubts him. Clay pits like this have existed for centuries, millennia even. Nubian potters once traded vessels as far north as the Delta and as far south as the Kingdom of Kush. Some shards found in ancient tombs match the style your village still uses. Deep red slip, hand-burnished, with intricate incised patterns. Archaeologists love to argue over whether these were purely functional or also ceremonial. You're pretty sure the answer is both. After all, a pot can carry water and a blessing, or at least a really good soup. Hey, Zahi says suddenly. Did you hear the story about the pot that sang? You raise an eyebrow. He grins. Apparently, a merchant once bought a vessel from our village, carried it all the way to Thebes, and swore he heard it humming during full moons. Said it sounded like his grandmother's lullabies. Maybe he was just homesick. Maybe the pot was. You snort. More likely he inhaled too much incense. Or not enough. You chuckle and sling a full basket over your shoulder. It's heavier than it looks. You begin the slow climb up the pit's edge, slipping a little on the muddy slope. At the top, you dump the clay into the waiting trough and head back down. Repeat. Repeat. Again. It's hot, repetitive work. But there's comfort in the rhythm. The scrape of basket, the squelch of clay, the occasional dramatic splash when someone forgets there's a hidden puddle and vanishes knee first into embarrassment. By the time the sun reaches its zenith, your arms are jelly, your back is one solid complaint, and your stomach is playing percussion with your ribs. You pause beside Zahi, both of you soaked in mud and sweat. He lifts his arm, sniffs, winces. I smell like fermented frog. You're being watched, you whisper. He freezes, glances sideways. Thutmud is still there, regal, unbothered. Do you think he judges us? Constantly. You both nod. Accept it. It's just past midday now. The light has turned sharp and white, casting harsh shadows across the pit. It's time to head back, clean up, rest, maybe find something edible that doesn't involve lentils or disappointment. As you walk back toward the village, clay baskets stacked behind you, you glance once more at Thutmud. He doesn't move. He doesn't need to. He's royalty, and this is his kingdom. You are halfway home when your stomach threatens open rebellion. It's not being subtle about it either. There's gurgling, grumbling, and one ominous honk that turns a passing goat's head. You glare down at your midsection. Not helpful, you mutter. It responds with a belch that sounds suspiciously like it's demanding lentils. You pick up the pace. And the village smells like lunch now. Smoke curling from earthen stoves, the sharp tang of boiled greens, and someone burning garlic again. You know it's Aunt Dura, she does it on purpose. You pass the well, where a couple of kids are drawing water with the enthusiasm of bored frogs. One of them waves. You wave back with a limp hand, already dreaming of food and shade. Near the communal kitchen, Malik is fanning a pile of embers with a palm leaf that's seen better days. He's shirtless again, covered in sweat and soot, and something that might be mustard. He looks up. Want some stew? You blink. That depends. Is it edible this time? He grins. Define edible. I'm going to define it as won't be visited by spirits tonight. Then no. Still, your options are limited. You sit anyway, cross-legged beside the fire, as he ladles some vaguely beige mush into a chipped clay bowl. You accept it like a noble being, offered a ceremonial insult. It smells like nutrition. You take a bite. It tastes like heat and mild suffering. You chew slowly, as if that will delay the consequences. Across the way, your neighbor Sana is sitting under an acacia tree, peeling figs with the kind of concentration usually reserved for spiritual enlightenment. Her daughters are using each other as drums. One of them has clay in her hair. You don't ask. The village hums around you. People eating, laughing, arguing about whose pot cracked and whose goat is most disrespectful. Smoke spirals lazily into the sky. A reed flute starts playing somewhere in the background. You're not sure if it's a song or just someone trying to summon rain through sheer will. Malik finishes his bowl and licks the spoon like it owes him money. "You hear about the scribe?" he asks. You raise an eyebrow. "Which one?" "The one from the lowlands. Arrived this morning with scrolls and attitude." That gets your attention. Scribes don't visit often. They're government, officials, record keepers, the ones who carry news from the royal court and make everything sound more dramatic than it probably is. If one's here, something's up. "What kind of scrolls?" you ask. "Didn't say. Just strutted through like he owned the village. Sat down near the big tree and started writing. Didn't even say hello." "Did he have a good pen?" "Looked like it was made from gold and regret." You snort. "So a noble then?" "Obviously." After finishing your bowl and contemplating chewing it for texture, you wipe your hands on your tunic and rise. Curiosity is a powerful motivator, and you're already full of regrets, so what's one more? You head toward the shade of the large sycamore tree, near the village center. Sure enough, there he is. The scribe. He's sitting on a woven mat, his scroll unfurled in front of him, writing with the kind of care that suggests either great reverence or great boredom. His robes are fine linen, creased in that perfect, deliberate way that makes your own outfit feel like it's been through a flood, which, to be fair, it has. His sandals gleam unnaturally. His hair is oiled. His ink smells expensive. You approach with caution. He glances up, briefly, then back down. You clear your throat. He ignores you. You try again. "Nice scroll." That gets a flicker of acknowledgement. "State property," he mutters, voice clipped like papyrus. You nod. "We make pots. I noticed." You wait for elaboration. None comes. "Well," you say, "we also make soup." Less impressed. You squint at the scroll. It's covered in neat, demotic script, each line perfectly aligned like little soldiers standing in judgment. You can't read it, but it looks official. "What's it say?" "None of your concern." "That's fair." You stand in awkward silence for a moment, unsure whether to press or retreat. Before you can decide, he says, "Pharaoh's council is discussing changes to provincial resource quotas. Pottery numbers are under review." That lands with the grace of a dropped amphora. You blink. "Under review for what?" He shrugs. "Efficiency, tribute value, redundancy." That's a lot of words to say. You might be unemployed. He glances at you. Finally, a flicker of something human behind the bureaucratic mask. "I didn't say that." "You didn't not say it." He sighs and gestures you away. "I have work to finish." You walk back to Malik, mind buzzing. He's now trying to roast a fig on a stick. "Trouble?" he asks without looking. "Maybe." "Big trouble?" "Only if Pharaoh decides red pottery is out of fashion." He grimaces. "Not the red. Always the red." The sun shifts slightly, casting longer shadows. The flute music stops. A distant bird screeches. It might just be coincidence, but it might also be a sign. Pottery is life here. Not just work, not just tradition. It's the heartbeat of the village. Take it away, and the rhythm stumbles. Still, for now, the clay is plentiful. The kilns are warm. The buffalo hasn't eaten anything important in at least an hour, and you're only halfway through the day. You don't plan to eat lunch under the acacia tree. It just happens. One moment you're trying to process the possibility that Pharaoh's council might classify handmade pottery as redundant, and the next, you're flopping down in the dirt beside a pile of sleepy figs, like someone just unplugged your motivation. The tree's shade is patchy, but the breeze here is decent. Somewhere above you, a bird yells at another bird with the kind of personal fury usually reserved for family dinners. A leaf falls directly into your mouth. You take that as a sign to stop thinking for a while. Sana's daughters are still nearby, now attempting to play a game that involves a broken pot shard, a handful of date pits, and rules only they understand. One of them shrieks, the other throws mud, and suddenly you're the neutral referee in a war zone of giggles and pointy objects. You manage to redirect the chaos with an emergency fig offering and retreat a safe distance. From here, you can see the river peeking between the huts. It's high today, murmuring, glittering, and gently gnawing at the banks like a bored herbivore. A few kids are down at the waterline, floating on upside-down basket lids, daring each other to touch a suspicious log that may or may not be a sleeping crocodile. You'd stop them, but you're not technically responsible. The village is slowing now. Midday heat has dulled everyone's urgency. Smoke from the cooking fires hangs in lazy ribbons. Potters lie back on mats with their arms over their faces. Even the buffalo has taken a nap stance, flat on its side, legs splayed, like someone tipped over a very hairy beanbag chair. You consider doing the same, but then someone shouts, "Meeting!" You open one eye. Groan. Not again. Village meetings are never brief. They are long, loud, occasionally involve interpretive dance, thanks to old Naeem, and always end with someone swearing to never attend another, which they do. The next day, you drag yourself to the meeting circle, where people are already gathering beneath the large sycamore tree. The scribe is still perched on his mat, scribbling like a man possessed by bureaucratic spirits. Beside him, Aunt Dura has claimed the loudest sitting position possible. "Flood Festival," she announces. Everyone groans. "It's next week," she continues, ignoring the collective suffering. "And this year, we're doing it right." No one dares ask what right means. Last time, right involved 12 goats in colored tunics and a chorus of children pretending to be river spirits. You still have nightmares. This time, Dura says, we'll have dancers, musicians, offerings, and... She pauses for dramatic effect. A fire jug procession. You blink. What's a fire jug procession? She grins. That's the beauty of it. We invent it. Across the circle, Malik raises a hand. Do the jugs stay on fire? Yes. While carried? Yes. By us? Obviously. There's a beat of silence as everyone recalculates their life choices. Dura continues. We'll need costumes, painted pots, a new blessing chant, maybe some trained ducks. Someone in the back mutters, "The ducks weren't trained last year." "They were trained," Dura snaps. "They just didn't listen." The meeting spirals quickly into chaos. People argue about color palettes for the painted pots, which chant rhythm feels more watery, and whether the buffalo should be included as a sacred beast or kept as far from fire as physically possible. You try to slip away, quietly, like a ninja in sandals, but Aunt Dura catches your eye. Points. "You," she says. "You're in charge of the pot-carrying team." You blink. There's a team. There is now. And just like that, you're head of logistics for an invented tradition no one fully understands. You sit back down, stunned. The meeting drones on. Old Naeem proposes a tribute dance involving interpretive splashing. Zahi volunteers to make a 3-handled jug just to confuse people. Sana insists on fig snacks for all participants. Someone suggests glow-in-the-dark pigment, which Malik loudly supports until reminded it doesn't exist. Eventually, people begin to drift away. Some return to the kilns, others to napping spots. The buffalo, blessedly, wanders off toward the river, chasing a dream only it understands. You're left under the tree, now holding a list that reads, Jugs, X20, Fireproof Gloves, Ask Auntie, Chance, Finalize Words, Paint, nothing that makes people itchy, Emergency Duck Handler. You stare at the list, then sigh. The festival, like most things in the village, is equal parts nonsense and necessity. It doesn't have to happen. No gods will smite you if it doesn't, but somehow it always does. Because people need ceremony. They need noise, laughter, a reason to get clay on their noses in new and creative ways. And if that ceremony involves mildly dangerous flaming jugs, so be it. You fold the list and stuff it into your tunic. A breeze lifts the edge of your headscarf. Somewhere nearby, a kid shrieks about a sky lizard, probably a heron, and someone starts playing the flute again. Badly, but with passion. You lean back, stare at the canopy above, and wonder what tomorrow's rehearsal will bring. Probably fire, definitely chaos, but also, just maybe, something wonderful. You wake from your not-quite nap under the acacia tree to the sound of yelling. Not alarmed yelling, not even angry yelling. It's the distinct, echoing voice of two elderly men in a very familiar argument. One that's older than most of the pots in your house, and at least as cracked. You sit up and peek over the drying racks. It's Uncle Beck and Old Man Sahir, again. The battlefield is the edge of the central firing area, an open circle of scorched earth with two large kilns squatting like sleepy toads, surrounded by stacks of fresh pots and more than a few hopeful chickens. Sahir is gesturing wildly at the northern kiln with a ladle. A ladle. You watch it swing through the air like a weaponized soup spoon. Beck has his arms crossed, glaring at the kiln like it owes him money. His brow is furrowed so deep it could host irrigation channels. You can almost hear the phrase, "in my day," straining to burst out. You shuffle closer, because obviously... "Doesn't get hot enough," Sahir barks. "It's the shape. You've been stacking it wrong since year 4. Year 4 of what? Beck growls. I built this kiln with my own hands and 2 bad knees. You couldn't stack firewood if it came with instructions. Aunt Dura passes by behind you and whispers, "3rd time this week. They rehearse." You don't doubt it. These two have been feuding over kiln heat for longer than you've been alive. It's not even about pottery anymore. It's performance art. Still, the issue they're arguing over is kind of important. Your next firing is coming up this evening, and the last time the kiln ran cool, 6 water jugs came out looking like deflated fruit. One of them now holds flowers on your aunt's table. Another holds your uncle's spare sandals. You join the circle just in time for Sahir to poke the side of the kiln with his ladle. "That's not even real clay," he declares. "It's river sludge." Beck gasps like someone just insulted his mother and his best goat. "I'll have you know." You clear your throat. Both men turn to you, simultaneously. It's like interrupting a thunderstorm. "Hi," you say. "Quick question. Do either of you want this firing to actually happen today?" They blink. Sahir huffs. "Of course," Beck mutters. "Maybe." You glance between them. "Then maybe, just for today, you don't test whether ladles can be fatal?" Beck lowers his arms. Sahir lowers his spoon. It's progress. "Fine," Sahir says. "But I want it on record that the southern kiln is hotter. The southern kiln is full of soot. Soot is flavor." You raise both hands. "Let's just light both. Whichever one works better wins the honor of baking the fire jugs." They consider. Finally, Sahir nods. "Trial by flame. Acceptable." You back away before they resume the argument in pantomime. As the kiln prep begins, you help Malik and Zahi lug bundles of wood from the storehouse. Fat branches, some dry reeds, a few questionable bundles that may contain snakes. The kilns need a slow start. Low heat at first to dry the pots fully, then rising temperature to reach proper bake. Pottery is part science, part art, and part desperate prayer. Stack them evenly, you remind Zahi as he tries to balance 3 water jars on a slope that would give a mountain goat vertigo. I am stacking evenly. You're stacking dramatically. He shrugs. Style matters. The kiln fires begin to grow. Thin lines of smoke rise into the sky. You can feel the heat radiating off the brick mouths, and that familiar buzz starts to build in your chest. Nerves, excitement, and a little healthy fear. Firing day always feels like a festival and a gamble. One by one, pots are passed down the line, carefully arranged inside the mouths of both kilns. The elders mumble blessings. A few kids toss in flower petals for luck. Someone brings a bowl of lentils for the fire spirits. It's unclear whether that's symbolic or a snack. The flames catch. They always do. And now it's just waiting. A long, slow wait full of smoke, heat, and a lot of staring at pots that you can't touch. It's like watching bread rise. If the bread was made of dirt, it might explode at any moment. You lean against a post and wipe sweat from your forehead. Your tunic sticks to your back like it's trying to merge with your soul. Behind you, Malik whistles. You ever think about how much of our life is waiting for things to not explode? You nod. It's most of the job, honestly. The sun begins to tilt westward. Shadows lengthen. The air takes on that golden, flickering tone that makes everything look like a painting someone accidentally set on fire. And the pots, they glow, not visibly, not yet, but you feel it. The slow transformation, the clay curing, the form solidifying. It's beautiful, quietly dramatic, like a secret only your hands understand. It's also incredibly hot. You take turns fanning the kilns, not because it helps, more because it makes you feel useful and gives you an excuse to sit without being scolded. In the background, Beck and Sahir have resumed their debate in low murmurs. Something about airflow this time. But their gestures are gentler now. Familiar. Like an old song they both remember, but insist on singing slightly off-key. You smile. The fire crackles. The clay strengthens. And somewhere deep in your chest, you feel it. The quiet pride of creation, of taking earth and water and heat and breath, and turning it into something that will hold soup, or flowers, or history. The sun dips lower. The sky shifts from gold to peach to lavender. And the village waits with you. Dusk settles over the village like a soft linen shroud, warm, faded, and just a little smoky. The fires in the kilns burn steady now, no longer roaring but breathing, exhaling slow waves of heat that ripple through the air. Shadows stretch long and lazy across the ground, and the pots inside the kilns begin to whisper back in their own language. Pops creaks, the occasional thud that makes everyone wince. You sit with your knees pulled up to your chest, clay dust still streaked across your arms. Your cousin Zahi leans beside you, chewing something he claims is dried okra, but looks more like disappointment shaped into food. He offers you a piece. You decline, politely but firmly. Nearby, the elders are quietly monitoring the fire. Uncle Beck has soot on his forehead like a war mark. Old Sahir leans on his ladle like it's a cane, and occasionally pokes the fire with it when no one's looking. Malik has fallen asleep on a pile of basket reeds, snoring gently like a content sheep. It's a peaceful scene. Until someone screams, everyone jumps. You spring to your feet just in time to see Hani, your cousin and fellow potter, barreling down the path from the northern fields with wild eyes and a suspiciously dripping tunic. "Crocodile!" she yells. "In the compost pit!" Several villagers gasp. A child cheers. Aunt Dura drops a ladle. You blink. "The compost pit?" Hani stops in front of you, panting. Big, green, toothy. It growled at me. You sure it wasn't Malik? She glares. It hissed. Still could be Malik. She ignores you and gestures wildly. It's in the pit, staring at everyone like it owns the place. This, of course, calls for a delegation. So, naturally, 10 people follow her back to the pit, armed with various improvised weapons. A broom, 2 garden hose, and a ceremonial drum someone thought might scare it off with sound. You go too, because obviously. The compost pit is a soggy, fragrant corner of the village, rich in old leaves, leftover stew, and things no one's willing to talk about. And yes, there it is. The crocodile. Not enormous, but large enough to be extremely convincing. It's nestled in a bed of banana peels, staring out with those lazy, ancient eyes that say, "Yes, I'm here. No, I won't explain myself." Everyone freezes. No one wants to be the first to poke it. "This is a sign," Aunt Dura whispers. "An omen." "Of what?" you ask. "Of something. Helpful." Zahi steps forward with the confidence of someone who's clearly not thinking this through. "We could throw fish at it." You blink. "To lure it away or train it?" He shrugs. "Either." Eventually, someone suggests alerting the temple downriver. Priests, after all, handle crocodile-related omens, or they pretend to, which is basically the same thing. A runner is dispatched with a message tied to a stick, because nothing says urgent religious question like a slightly damp stick. You return to the kiln site, a little more tense than before. The scribe is still there, of course, still scribbling. You suspect he hasn't blinked since noon. He raises an eyebrow as you sit down again. "Crocodile," you say flatly. He nods. "Naturally." The sky fades deeper now. Stars begin to appear. First a few bold ones, then the delicate scatter of the rest, like someone shook salt across velvet. A gentle hush falls over the village, broken only by the occasional hiss of the fire or the distant shriek of a child discovering a frog in their shoe. You love this time of day, not just for the breeze, though that is a blessing, but because everything feels soft, even the hard things. Arguments dissolve. Soot settles. The pots inside the kiln begin to glow faintly, like they're holding the memory of sunlight inside their bones. Someone passes you a bowl of something warm and thick, grain porridge spiced with fenugreek and mystery. You eat without asking questions. It tastes like the end of a long day, simple, filling, mildly confusing. Across the fire, Beck and Sahir are no longer arguing. They're snoring in perfect sync. It's oddly comforting. You glance toward the river. From here, the water glows silver in the moonlight. Somewhere beyond the reeds, the buffalo probably sleeps, or broods, or negotiates with the crocodile. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise you. And then it happens. A low, hollow crack. Everyone freezes. Then another. Not a bad crack. Not the dreaded shattering of an exploded pot, but the deep, resonant pop of clay settling, hardening, completing its transformation. Someone exhales. The tension breaks. One of the elders nods. The batch lives. There's quiet applause, the kind only potters give, where clapping is minimal, but the satisfaction is immense. Tonight, the pot's made it. Tomorrow, you'll open the kiln. See the colors. Check for warping, flaking, blessings, or curses. You'll scrape soot from the rims, wipe the ash from their bellies, and carry them proudly to the racks. Some will go to the market. Some will go to the temple. One will probably be used to store frog-catching supplies. But tonight? Tonight they sleep. And so do you. You lean back against your sleeping mat, arms crossed behind your head, eyes half closed. The stars pulse gently above. The kiln crackles like a fire-fed lullaby. Someone nearby hums the beginning of a festival chant, soft and slow. You don't sing along, but you hum it in your mind, and you smile. Morning finds you with clay in your hair and a goat nibbling your sleeve. You blink awake to a damp breeze and the scent of ash and lentils, which is either someone's breakfast or a failed experiment from Aunt Dura's stew pit. The goat blinks back at you, chewing thoughtfully. You roll over and mutter, "Not edible," which deters absolutely no one. The kilns are quiet now. Ash settles in soft dunes at their base, and a single bird has claimed the top of the southern kiln like it's auditioning for a spiritual role. The fire's long gone out, but the warmth lingers, deep and gentle, like the afterglow of a well-told story. You stretch, pop several joints that sound like breaking kindling, and head toward the racks. You know the ritual. Wait until the sun fully rises, let the clay cool just a bit more, then open the mouths of the kilns and see what survived. But Malik is already there. He's crouched in front of the southern kiln with his head practically inside it. "I told you not to inhale kiln dreams," you say. He startles, bangs his head, and falls backward into the pile of reeds. "I was inspecting. You were sniffing. I was doing both." Together, you begin the delicate process of extracting the pots. Each one is a surprise. Some are flawless, their red slip shining like baked sunsets. Others have small warps that give them character, or at least an excuse to become artistic. A few have cracks, minor ones, the kind you can seal with resin or excuses. One pot is different. It's smaller, oddly shaped, with a surface finish you don't recognize. The glaze has fused in a strange, uneven pattern that shimmers like fish scales in certain light. You tilt it. It hums, just barely. Zahi appears over your shoulder. "That's new." "I didn't make it," you say. He leans in. "I definitely didn't make it." Malik peeks over. Maybe it made itself. You all stare at it for a long moment. Eventually, Aunt Dura waddles over, peers at it, and declares, "It's a blessing," then walks away. You decide not to argue, because arguing with Aunt Dura before breakfast is how curses happen. As the village stirs, more people gather to admire the batch. Compliments are exchanged, critiques whispered. One pot is immediately claimed by a toddler who fills it with frogs, and another is accidentally dropped by a chicken, which sparks a brief but intense debate over poultry culpability in property damage. And then it's time for the market run. This week, you're the runner. You and a few others, Zahi, Malik, and Sana, who insists on bringing her fig pies as leverage, are tasked with loading the best pieces into a shallow barge and heading upriver to the market at the next trading village. You hate the barge. It's old. It smells like damp shoes. It creaks with every ripple of the water and is shaped in such a way that if you sneeze too hard, you're swimming. Still, tradition is tradition. You load the pots carefully, layering reeds between them for padding. The humming pot is placed dead center, wrapped in cloth, blessed twice, just in case, and given its own corner like a diva. The river is high, gentle, and suspiciously quiet. You push off, the paddle cutting through water that's brown, sluggish, and definitely hiding at least 6 eels. You float. And it's not bad. The wind is soft, the sun not too high. Dragonflies skim the surface like they're racing. Occasionally, you pass a fishing boat or a family bathing water buffaloes. One child waves. You wave back with a pot balanced on your knees. He seems impressed. Zahi hums a tune that might be the start of a song or the slow unraveling of his mind. Malik tells the same joke he tells every barge trip. What do you call a wet pot? A soaked jug. Sana throws a fig at him. You reach the market by midday. It's chaos. Glorious chaos. Tents flap. Colors blur, voices blend. The air smells like roasted onions, river fish, sweat, and the kind of incense that promises romantic success and delivers mild headaches. You navigate through donkeys, rugs, grain sacks, yelling merchants, and a very intense camel. You find your usual stall, an open square near the well, and begin arranging your wares. The pots gleam in the sun. People gather. They point. They compliment. They haggle. They pretend they don't want it, and then buy it anyway. The humming pot, of course, sells first. To a woman with 7 necklaces and eyes like she's seen 3 pharaohs come and go. She doesn't haggle. She just nods and hands you a tiny gold bead. No change, she says. You don't ask questions. By the time the sun begins to dip, your cart is mostly empty, and your pouch is pleasantly heavy. You trade a few remaining bowls for smoked catfish, dried mango, a string of tiny bells, and a woven mat with a lopsided scarab in the corner. You call that a win. As you drift home, the river glows pink with sunset. The water laps gently at the hull. Zahi dozes. Sana hums. Malik eats the rest of the fig pies and denies everything. You rest your head on the mat and think about how a pot can start as mud and end as music, and how, sometimes, the village sends you downriver, but the river always brings you home. The village greets your return with a kind of chaotic relief. Children swarm the barge before it even touches the bank, eager to see what you brought back. Not because they need anything, but because they believe every trip comes with stories, sweets, and at least one strange object. You step off the boat and hand a carved gourd whistle to the nearest child, who promptly uses it to summon chaos. You're not sure why you keep doing this to yourself. Behind you, Malik carries the smoked catfish, like it's sacred. Zahi is still half asleep, walking with the dreamy gait of someone who spent most of the return journey imagining he was a river spirit. Sana marches past all of you with the dignity of someone who sold every last fig pie and fully intends to brag about it over dinner. As you unload your trade spoils, a familiar voice calls out, "Good timing!" Aunt Dura waves from her doorway. "The festival plans are a disaster." Of course they are. You sigh, pass the last pot to a waiting cousin, and follow her up the dusty path toward the central gathering space. The air smells like wood smoke and anticipation. Garlands hang from branches. Painted pots line the walkways. The buffalo, for some reason, has been painted blue. You don't ask. "It was supposed to be festive," Dura complains as she stomps beside you. Now it looks like a river god sneezed glitter everywhere. "I thought that was the goal," you offer. She glares. "Also, someone trained ducks to march in formation." That sounds like a success. They march backwards. You arrive at the meeting area to find a scene best described as creative interpretation of a schedule. Half the village is constructing something involving reeds, drums, and fire jugs. The other half is arguing over the order of the procession. At the center of it all, the scribe sits calmly, scribbling notes in his scroll, like none of this involves him. You approach. Are you writing a report or a novel? He doesn't look up. Depends how this ends. You squint. What's the latest from Pharaoh's council? He finally glances at you. They're still deciding. Deciding what? If small villages like this should continue receiving clay allocations for non-essential pottery. You feel a chill despite the heat. Non-essential? He nods. Items not directly tied to tribute or temple service. You gesture at the fire jugs, the decorated pots, the ducks, still marching backward. This is essential. He sighs. I agree, but they don't live here. You sit beside him, silent for a moment. Do you ever miss it? You ask. Miss what? Living somewhere that understands what a pot is for. He doesn't answer right away. Then, every day. A breeze stirs the garlands. Somewhere, a child shouts about a missing mask. Malik is teaching the buffalo to bow. It's working disturbingly well. You rise. Come watch the rehearsal. You're already writing about us. Might as well see how weird it gets. He hesitates. Then, to your surprise, stands and follows. The rehearsal is pure madness. Kids dressed as river spirits leap from behind bushes. A group of elders chant a hymn so off-key it loops back around to harmony. The fire jug team, which includes you, unfortunately, practices slow, dramatic steps across a line of painted stones. Left, right, don't drop the fire. Someone drops the fire. No one is injured, but the ceremonial curtain now has a small burn hole that looks suspiciously like a crocodile. Aunt Dura calls it symbolic. Old Naim debuts his dance. It involves reeds, a pot on his head, and interpretive sneezing. The ducks, meanwhile, continue marching in perfect reverse order. Someone suggests it's a blessing in disguise. Someone else suggests we just embrace it and walk backwards during the entire ceremony. That person is ignored. But somehow, it works. By evening, the chaos begins to shape itself into rhythm. The steps align, the chants sharpen. Even the buffalo seems to understand its cue. And the scribe? He sits at the edge of the circle, no longer writing, just watching. You catch his eye. He nods. And for the first time, you think he gets it. This village, this little flood-washed patch of earth, full of frogs and fire and fig-stained clay. It may not have palaces or polished scrolls, but it has people. Hands, heat, hope, and pots. So many pots. As night rises and the stars return, you feel something settle in your chest. The kind of quiet certainty that doesn't need scrolls or laws or quotas. Just a fire that still burns, a pot that still holds, and a story that's not done being told. The day of the festival arrives with a sky so clear it feels suspicious. No clouds, no frogs, no last-minute buffalo rampages. It's enough to make you nervous. Something must go wrong, that's the rule. But for now, the village stirs with an excited kind of energy. The kind that hums in the clay, bounces off the painted pots, and makes small children spin in circles until they fall over. You wake early, your mat pressed against your back, like a warm warning that today will be busy. You roll out of bed and immediately trip over your ceremonial sandals. They're new. They're also loud, painted bright red with sun patterns along the straps and little bells that jingle with every step. Aunt Dura made them. She insists they command spiritual attention. You think they command attention from mosquitoes and mockingbirds. You jingle your way out of the hut. The village is transforming. Banners hang between huts. The reed paths are swept clean. Painted jars sit proudly on stone pedestals. A fresh garland has been tied around the buffalo, who looks deeply unamused. Zahi is adjusting his fire jug harness while chewing on a sweet fig. Like a soldier preparing for battle, you find Malik near the central circle, staring blankly at the duck squad. They've started marching sideways, he says. That's still better than backwards. Only slightly. You clap a hand on his shoulder. We've survived worse, he sighs. That's true. There was that time the soup exploded. And the time the goat got into the pigment jars. And the time the scribe tried to dance. You blink. That was yesterday. He blinks back. Exactly. You're summoned to final preparation by Aunt Dura, who is already dressed in her ceremonial shawl, beads jingling like a percussion instrument with opinions. She hands you a bowl of black paint. For your face, she says. What kind of symbol? She squints at you. Something strong. You end up with a slightly off-center spiral and a line down your nose. You tell yourself it's intimidating. It mostly makes you look confused. You and your fire jug team gather beside the kiln. The jugs have been specially prepared, glazed with ash, burnished to a deep gleam, and filled with oil-soaked reeds that, when lit, create a low, steady flame. Dangerous? Yes. Impressive? Definitely. A hush falls over the village. It's time. The ceremony begins at the riverbank, where the water gleams silver blue under the rising sun. Elders pour offerings into the tide. Crushed flower petals, small grains, a broken pot for remembrance, and a fish someone forgot to cook. The procession starts slow. First the children, dressed as river spirits, faces painted with swirls and reeds tucked behind their ears. Then the duck brigade, still marching sideways like they're performing avant-garde theater. The musicians follow, pounding drums with hands and sticks and occasionally elbows. Then you, the fire jug carriers. You walk slowly, deliberately, 1 foot at a time, balancing heat and rhythm and the overwhelming urge to sneeze from the smoke. The flames flicker above your shoulders, casting golden light across your face. You feel powerful, like a clay-wielding warrior in a parade no one asked for, but everyone needs. The crowd cheers. Somewhere, a flute hits the wrong note, but no one cares. You pass through the center of the village, circling the main square, where pots line the path like glowing stars. Painted scenes of rivers, harvests, and dancing frogs decorate their curves. Some are new, some are old. One is clearly broken and glued back together with fig syrup, but no one's mentioning it. At the center, you stop. The final offering is brought forward. It's the pot, the strange one. The one that hummed, wrapped in linen, cradled like a relic. It's placed gently onto a pedestal at the heart of the square. The crowd falls silent. Aunt Dura steps forward. She lifts her hands. "We give thanks to the water," she says. "To the clay," the crowd answers. "To the fire, to the hands, to the pots that held our stories, to the stories that shaped our hands." The pot hums again, very softly. Or maybe it's the wind. Either way, no one questions it. You step back as the dancers move in, circling the pedestal, hands raised, feet stamping rhythms into the dust. Old Naeem joins them with a pot on his head and an expression of fierce focus. He twirls, he sways, he sneezes dramatically. It's perfect. The ceremony crescendos into music, movement, and light. Even the scribe is smiling now. Still taking notes, yes, but also tapping his foot to the beat. You catch his eye. He nods. After the final chant, the fire jug carriers kneel and gently extinguish the flames. Smoke spirals upward. The village exhales. The festival is done. And for the first time in a while, you feel safe. Not from floods or officials or wandering crocodiles, but from forgetting. Forgetting why any of this matters. Because it's easy, isn't it? To let the days blur. To treat pots like objects. To see clay as dirt and not memory. But today reminded you, this life, this muddy, smoky, duck-scented life, is a thing worth celebrating. You rise, soot-faced and sore, and you smile. You survived the fire jugs, and so did the story. The day after the festival is always the quietest. The village breathes like it's just finished running a very long, very chaotic relay race. One that involved pottery, flames, a frog choir, and at least 3 ceremonial arguments about whether ducks are technically divine. You wake up later than usual, your legs sore from dancing, your back sore from jug carrying, and your neck sore from watching old Naeem balance a pot for 12 uninterrupted minutes. That man is a legend, or at least a cautionary tale. Outside, the world is soft. A gentle breeze rustles the reeds. Someone is sweeping. Someone else is sleeping while sweeping. You suspect it's Malik. He's developed a technique that involves leaning on the broom and calling it meditative hygiene. You shuffle out of your hut in last night's tunic, hair like a clay nest, and find Zahi sitting by the well, trying to fix a sandal strap with a fishbone. "Festival over," he says flatly. You sound disappointed. I am disappointed. I like the excuse to yell in public and set things on fire. You do that most Tuesdays anyway. He shrugs. True. You sit beside him and dangle your legs over the edge of the well wool. The water below glints with sunlight, reflecting the lazy sway of the bucket rope. A bee buzzes near your ear and makes a slow, unbothered circle before deciding you're not worth the effort. It's peaceful, but not boring. There's a difference. You look around. Children are helping gather leftover decorations, some to reuse, some to eat. Aunt Dura is collecting half-burned reeds and muttering about turning them into sacred toothpaste. The buffalo still has faint traces of blue paint along its side, which it seems fine with. You smile. It's the little things. You spot the scribe sitting under a tree, scroll open, eyes scanning the pages with that same intensity he's had since he arrived. But there's something new in his posture. Less rigidity, more curiosity. You walk over. He looks up, nods, says nothing. You sit across from him and gesture at the scroll. Still writing? He smirks faintly. Always. What are you calling it? He pauses. Then, with no irony at all, the pot that sang. You burst out laughing. To your surprise, he chuckles too. A long silence settles. A good one. Then he says, the council will still argue. They'll still try to count pots and measure value by weight and gold. You nod. But, he adds, I'll tell them what I saw. You raise an eyebrow. He smiles. That a pot can carry more than grain. That a village can survive floods and droughts and bureaucracy. And that sometimes a story is worth more than a statue. You blink. That may be the most poetic thing anyone said here since the fire jug chant accidentally rhymed with goat. You're not so bad for a scribe, you say. And you're not so bad for a muddy artisan. High praise. He rolls up his scroll. I'm leaving tomorrow. You feel a small ache in your chest. You'll come back? He looks around. The kiln, the garlands still fluttering, the duck now napping on a jug, and says, I think I already have. Later that evening, you gather by the kiln one last time. The fire is low, just warmth now, just memory. Zahi strums a 3-string lyre with half the notes missing. Malik hums something tuneless but soothing. The children tell exaggerated versions of yesterday's ceremony. Someone insists the pot really did hum. Someone else insists the buffalo bowed to the moon. You don't argue with either, because honestly, it might all be true. The stars blink awake, one by one. You lie back in the grass, arms behind your head, the world turning slowly above you. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, you're not thinking about clay ratios or kiln temperatures, or how long you can go before doing laundry. You're just here, a potter, a villager, a small part of something very old and very important and very full of ducks. You close your eyes. The last thing you hear before sleep is someone whispering, "Did you hear it? The pot, just now." And someone else answering, "No, but I believe you." You wake to rain, not a storm, not a flood, just a soft, steady whisper of water pattering against reed roofs and clay walls, soaking into the earth like a blessing whispered instead of shouted. The kind of rain that smells clean, like fresh mud and old memories. You stay still for a while, curled in your mat, listening. The rain drums gently above you, a slow rhythm that matches your breath. Somewhere outside, someone sneezes. A chicken complains. Eventually, you rise. Everything feels slower today. The ground is slick, the paths saw. The children are wearing their festival masks like helmets and racing through puddles. You spot one carrying a stick with a fish tied to the end like a ceremonial spear. You don't ask. By the kiln, Zahi is poking at the fire pit, despite there being no fire and no plan to start one. "It's too wet to work," he mutters. "It's not too wet," you say, stepping into ankle-deep mud. He gestures grandly at your feet. "You're melting." You slosh past him and make your way toward the drying racks. Most of yesterday's remaining pots are tucked safely under the awning, but a few brave pieces were left in the open and are now collecting water like very artistic bird baths. You pour one out gently and give it a pat. You tried. Not far off, Aunt Dura is meditating under a tree. Or napping. Hard to tell. The buffalo is curled beside her, snoring like a distant thunderstorm. Someone's draped a shawl over it. You suspect this was not a buffalo-approved decision. "Rain day," Dura murmurs without opening her eyes. You nod. "Rest day." "No such thing," she snorts. "Rain just means you work differently." She's not wrong. Rain days in the village are strange and soft things. No firing, no clay mixing, no barge trips, but plenty of stitching, grinding pigments, repairing tools, and quietly sneaking naps disguised as creative visualization. You decide to spend your morning in the craft shelter. It's dim and quiet inside, the kind of space that smells like herbs and old wood and patience. Bundles of dried leaves hang from the beams. A half-finished basket rests in a corner. Malik is there, whittling a flute from a crooked reed, with the focus of a man who wants to impress someone, though he'd never admit it. "You can't play the one you have," you say, brushing raindrops from your sleeves. "I'm practicing," he replies. "On the theory." You sit across from him and begin sorting through the pigment jars. Some have dried, some are moldy. One appears to be growing something. You pass that one to Zahi when he wanders in. "Experiment," you tell him. "Cursed," he replies, and leaves it in a windowsill for observation. The three of you settle into a rhythm. Quiet chatter, soft laughter, the occasional complaint about humidity. You paint. Malik whittles. Zahi makes a clay turtle that looks like it has questions about its own existence. Outside, the rain continues. There's something ancient about this, about creating while the world turns soft around you. It reminds you that your people have always worked like this, through flood and drought, feast and famine. Not just surviving, but making. In one of the pigment jars, you find a swirl of deep red. Oxide rich, perfect for decoration. You dip your brush and begin to paint a pot. Spirals, waves, a crocodile wearing what could generously be described as a crown. Malik glances over. "That's a bold choice." "I'm manifesting," you say. Zahi leans in. "Is that the buffalo?" You nod. "As a river king." There's a long pause, then Malik adds, "He needs a scepter." You smile and give the buffalo a tiny fish scepter. And just like that, the room fills with that familiar warmth again, not from fire, but from presence, from company, from the quiet joy of being surrounded by people who understand the exact kind of madness you're building. When the rain finally stops, the sky is pale and washed clean. The ground squelches underfoot. The buffalo rises from its nap and stretches like a sun-drenched myth. Aunt Dura opens one eye, nods at the sky, and says, "Now." Everyone knows what she means. You return the pots to the racks, lay out the mats to dry, and begin boiling water for the evening meal. The smell of garlic and onion drifts through the air. A reed flute plays, badly but proudly. And just before sunset, the scribe returns from the river. He's soaked. He's smiling. He carries no scrolls today. Just a single, small pot. Painted red, with a crown and a fish scepter. Evening brings gold. Not the kind you trade or melt or bury under temple floors, but the kind that spills from the sky, brushes the tops of huts, and pools softly in the curves of every clay pot you've made this week. The village glows. You're sitting on the wall near the kiln yard, legs dangling over the side, eating roasted sweet root straight from the coals. It's still a little crunchy in the middle, but you're too tired to care. Your hands are streaked with red pigment. Your tunic smells like wet straw and smoke. You feel good. Tired in a way that means something. Across the yard, Malik is making music again, sort of. His new reed flute only plays 3 notes, and one of them sounds like a dying bird, but he's leaning into it, adding pauses, making it art. Zahi is nearby, turning his clay turtle into a scene. He's added a fish companion and what appears to be a lightning bolt. He claims it's symbolic. No one asks what it symbolizes. The scribe joins you, not with scrolls, not with pens, with bread. He tears off a piece and hands it to you. It's not great, he warns, but it's warm. You take it. Warm covers a lot of sins. He sits, watching the light shift across the yard. The buffalo is grazing quietly in the background, still faintly blue, still faintly regal. A duck perches on its back like a crown. No one questions it anymore. Did you always want to be a scribe? You ask. He considers. No, I wanted to be a river trader, but I hated boats. You smile. So naturally, you picked ink and rules. He shrugs. And now I spend my days listening to potters name frogs and paint gods on kitchenware. You gesture around. Not bad, though. No, he agrees. Not bad at all. He pulls something from his satchel. A small pot. The pot. The one with the odd glaze, the hum, the mystery. I studied it, he says quietly. Not just looked. Listened. You tilt your head. And? He runs a thumb along the edge. It's not the pot that hums. You raise an eyebrow. It's the hands, he says. Yours, Zahi's. Every callus, every fingerprint, burned into the clay when it was still soft. The fire just sealed it in. You're quiet for a moment, then... So the pot is singing us. He smiles. Exactly. You stare at it. This small vessel that's traveled through mud, fire, and ceremony, now cupped between 2 very different people on the edge of a soft, golden night. You've made hundreds of pots, maybe thousands. But this one might matter. Not because it's prettier, not because it glows, but because you listened, and so did it. Around you, the village continues to live, food being passed, laughter rising, music warbling gently across the courtyard. A child runs by with a painted mask on backward, shrieking in delight. Somewhere, Aunt Dura is insisting her stew can cure bad dreams. The buffalo snorts in agreement. You lean back and watch the stars arrive. One by one, they blink into place. Quiet, watchful, familiar. The scribe is silent beside you, the pot between his hands, cradled like something old and new at once. And for the first time since this story began, you don't feel the need to make anything. Not a bowl, not a joke, not even a plan. You just are. You exist, like a pot cooling after fire, like a song that's already been sung, like the hum that lingers even after the kiln goes dark. Morning creeps back into the world, soft and unbothered. You wake to the sound of a goat sneezing, a child giggling, a rooster who, despite years of community feedback, still insists on crowing directly at your door. Your shoulders ache in a way that suggests you carried more than just fire jugs yesterday. You carried a whole village's worth of memory, stitched into clay. You stretch, sit up, and squint into the dawn light. There's Malik, already fussing with a pile of reeds, trying to weave them into something that looks less like a basket and more like an idea. There's Zahi, balancing his clay turtle on the buffalo's back with the focus of a man who truly believes in artistic placement. The buffalo, of course, looks unimpressed. The scribe is sitting nearby, cross-legged, scroll half unfurled. He's watching the sunrise like it owes him an answer. You wander over. "What are you writing?" you ask. He doesn't look up. "A list." "Of?" "Things this village does that don't make sense." You grin. "Long list? Endless." You peer at the scroll. The script is neat, precise, like rows of tiny footprints in sand. But there are smudges, too, thumbprints where the ink's blurred. You like that. It feels honest. A reminder that even scribes get messy when they care too much. He sets the reed pen down and looks at you. "Do you know why I came here?" You shake your head. "I was sent to collect numbers, counts, tallies, pots fired, grain stored, goats owned." He gestures vaguely at the world around you. "But you can't measure a village in numbers." You nod slowly. "What would you measure instead?" He smiles, just a little. "In sounds, maybe. The clink of pots, the squeal of ducks, the snore of buffalo, the way people argue over nothing and everything at once." You both fall quiet. The village wakes around you. Smoke rises from the cooking fires. Children shriek as they chase each other with sticks pretending to be crocodiles. Someone shouts about a missing sandal. Someone else shouts that it's on the roof. You hear the gentle thunk-thunk of a potter shaping clay, the wet slap of hands on mud, the scrape of reed against pot. It's all music, in its own stubborn, chaotic way. The scribe sighs, rolls up the scroll, and tucks it away. "Leaving soon?" you ask, trying to sound casual. He nods. "Tomorrow." Your stomach sinks a little. Not because you didn't know this was coming, but because, well, he knows now. Knows the sound of the kilns, the feel of the clay, the way your village sings in the language of fire and mud and patience, and you're not sure you trust the world outside to remember that. "Tell them," you say quietly. "Tell the council we're not just numbers." He smiles. "I'll tell them you're a song." The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the ground. You glance at the buffalo. The clay turtle has fallen off again. Zahi is attempting to glue it back with fig paste. You decide not to stop him. The scribe rises and brushes dust from his tunic. He looks at you one last time, really looks, then heads toward the river, where the barge waits like a quiet punctuation mark. You watch him go. Malik ambles over, hands in his pockets, chewing on a reed. "Think he'll come back?" You shrug. "Maybe." "Think he'll remember the ducks?" "Definitely." You both laugh. The day stretches on. You have pots to glaze. Malik has a basket to finish. Zahi's arguing with Aunt Dura over whether a buffalo can be declared a religious figure. The kids are chasing frogs again. The reeds sway. The kiln waits for its next firing. And you get back to work. Because that's what you do. You shape the clay. You stoke the fire. You tell the story. And you hum, just softly, just for you. Because in this village, even the pots remember the tune. By midday, the sun turns relentless. It sits heavy in the sky, a molten coin pressing heat into your back as you work the clay. Your fingers move on autopilot. Press, turn, smooth. Each motion as familiar as breathing. The pot in front of you takes shape without a thought. as if your hands know something your brain doesn't. Malik passes by, carrying a basket of reeds on his shoulder and a smirk on his face. "You're making that lopsided again," he says. You glance at your pot. It's slightly lopsided. "Maybe. It's a design choice," you reply. "It's a lazy choice," he counters. You throw a ball of damp clay at him. It splats on his chest with a satisfying thwack. He freezes, looks down, and then, grinning, lobs it right back at you. It lands squarely on your forehead. You sigh, wipe your face, and say, "You realize this means war." A small clay skirmish breaks out, drawing the attention of Zahi, who promptly joins in by catapulting a half-formed bowl from the work table. It misses Malik by a hair and lands in the communal water trough with a splash. Aunt Dura emerges from her hut, eyes narrowed, hands on hips. "What are you children doing?" "Team building," you answer in unison. She rolls her eyes and mutters something about fools and frogs being equally useless, then disappears back inside, leaving the three of you grinning like guilty cats. As the laughter fades, you glance at the half-formed pot in front of you. It's ruined, of course. The rim is crumpled, the sides are dented. There's a suspiciously frog-shaped smear near the base. But instead of frustration, you feel light, like the pot doesn't need to be perfect. Like maybe you don't either. Malik collapses beside you, catching his breath. "You know," he says between gasps, "one day, archaeologists will dig this place up and think we were either geniuses or complete lunatics. Can't we be both?" He grins. "Wouldn't that be something?" Zahi plops down too, picking bits of reed from his hair. "Hey," he says suddenly. "Did you hear the story about the river gods and the broken pot?" You shake your head. He leans in, voice low and conspiratorial. "They say once a potter dropped a vessel into the Nile by accident. It cracked, split clean down the middle, and floated away. The potter thought it was lost, but the river carried it downstream, and when it washed up on a distant shore, it had healed itself." You raise an eyebrow. "Healed?" "Sealed back together, stronger than before, like the river mended it." Malik laughs. "Or maybe it just stuck itself full of mud." "Or that," Zahi concedes. You sit with the story for a while, the quiet hum of the village wrapping around you like a familiar song. Because that's the thing, isn't it? Life here is like that pot, sometimes cracked, sometimes carried by forces beyond your control, but still whole in its own imperfect way. Still here. A breeze picks up, rustling the reeds and cooling the sweat on your skin. You lean back, close your eyes, and listen. The distant clatter of pots, children arguing over whose frog is the most magical. The rhythmic thump of Aunt Dura's mortar as she grinds herbs. Malik's flute, off-key as always, but determined. The sound of a village breathing. Later, as the sun tilts toward the horizon, you and the others gather by the kiln, preparing for the evening's fire. There's something about the glow of the coals, the crackle of heat against clay, that feels timeless. Like you're part of a story that started long before you and will continue long after. You glance at the pot you've just finished. It's not perfect. It leans a little. There's a fingerprint near the base where you didn't smooth the clay, but you like it. It's honest. You set it down beside the others, ready for the fire. Tomorrow, the scribe leaves. He'll take his scrolls, his measurements, his neat little columns of numbers. But you'll stay. Because someone has to keep the fires burning. Someone has to make the pots. And someone has to remind the world that a village isn't just numbers in a scroll. It's stories. It's fingerprints in clay. It's laughter between friends and frogs hiding in water jars. It's home. The sun melts into the horizon like butter on hot stones, casting the village in a warm, sleepy glow. Shadows stretch long, and the air feels thick with the kind of quiet that settles in after a long day well lived. You sit near the kiln, feet bare, toes curling in the dust, watching the flames dance low and lazy. The latest batch of pots sits cooling, glowing faintly like embers under ash. You lean back on your hands, letting the warmth soak into your bones. Malik drops down beside you, groaning like an old cartwheel. "If I die tomorrow," he mutters, "bury me with my flute." You glance at him, amused. "So you can annoy the ancestors." He smirks. "Exactly." Across the yard, Zahi is arranging the latest pots on a woven mat, turning them this way and that, like a man inspecting his own children. The turtle is still there, of course, now accompanied by a tiny fish, and what looks like a half-formed frog. Zahi claims it's a protective charm. You think it's just an excuse to avoid helping with cleanup. The buffalo has wandered back into the square, casually sniffing at a basket of figs before plopping down like a furry boulder. The ducks, as always, orbit it like it's the sun. And there, by the well, sits the scribe. For once, he's not writing. He's holding the small, humming pot in his lap, turning it slowly in his hands, like he's trying to memorize every curve, every imperfection. His face is softer now. Less scribe, more something else. You're not sure what yet. You wander over. He glances up as you approach. "It's flawed," he says quietly, nodding at the pot. You tilt your head. "Aren't we all?" He huffs a small laugh. "True, but this wasn't what I expected to find here." You fold your arms, watching the pot glint in the fading light. "What did you expect?" He's quiet for a long moment, then, "I thought I'd find statistics, output, production quotas." He gestures vaguely toward the village. "But what I found was a system that doesn't fit in a scroll." You nod. "That's because it's not a system. It's a story." He traces a finger along the pot's edge, following the faint lines of a spiral design. "Tell me about this symbol." You shrug. "It's a river, or a snake, or the wind, depending on who you ask." He smiles. "Which is it for you?" You grin. "It's a pot. That's enough." He chuckles, a real laugh this time, low and surprised, like it snuck up on him. Then he looks down at the pot again, almost reverently. "I think I'll keep this one. Not for the council. For me." You nod, feeling something warm settle in your chest. "Good. You'll need a reminder." "A reminder of what?" You look out at the village, the smoke drifting from the cooking fires, the children playing tag with a dog. Aunt Dura swatting a mosquito with the force of a small thunderclap. The ducks, the buffalo, the songs, the laughter, the pots. Of what life feels like when you stop counting, you say softly. He's quiet for a long time. The fire crackles. The stars begin to bloom, one by one, across the darkening sky. You lean back against the well, arms crossed behind your head, and watch them appear. The air smells like warm earth, wood smoke, and the faintest hint of garlic. The scribe speaks, barely above a whisper. "Do you think they'll remember us?" You shrug. "Maybe." And then you smile, slow and easy. "But if they don't, that's okay. The pots will." Because in the end, it's not about who carves the statues or writes the scrolls. It's about the fingerprints pressed into clay, the spiral on a jar, the way a pot hums in the dark. It's about the stories that slip through the cracks, quiet and steady, waiting to be heard. And tonight, under a sky full of stars, you let that thought settle into your bones, like the warmth of a cooling kiln. You don't need to be remembered. You just need to remember. And you do. The morning arrives with a softness that feels like a gift. The rain has passed, the air is cool, and the sky is a pale, hopeful blue. The village wakes slowly, stretching like a cat in the sun, and for once no one seems in a hurry to start the day. You sit by the kiln, tracing lines in the dust with a stick, watching the last of the festival garlands sway in the breeze. The pots from the night's firing have cooled completely now, their surfaces catching the morning light in warm, earthy glints. You pick one up, a small water bee with a wide belly and a neck like a swan's. The glaze is uneven, a patchwork of deep reds and burnt oranges, flecked with tiny bubbles that make it look like it holds a sunset inside. It's not perfect, and that's exactly why you love it. Malik joins you, yawning so wide it looks like his face might fall off. He drops onto the ground with a thud that startles a nearby chicken. "Tell me again," he says, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Why do we do this?" You smirk. "Because we're too stubborn to do anything else," he groans. "That's not an answer." You glance at the pot in your hands. Turn it once, twice. Feel its weight, its shape, the subtle pull of gravity where the clay settled just a little heavier on one side. Then you say, "Because the river gives us mud, and we don't know how to say no." Malik laughs, low and warm. "Fair." The scribe appears at the edge of the yard, his scrolls neatly packed, his sandals tied tight. He's leaving today. You feel it settle over you like a thin layer of dust, inevitable, but still unwelcome. He pauses, looking around at the village, the smoke from cooking fires, the buffalo grazing lazily. Zahi arguing with a child about whether a frog can be considered a small god. He catches your eye, nods once. You stand, brush off your hands, and approach. "I'm not good at goodbyes," you say. "Neither am I," he admits. There's a pause. Then he holds out the small humming pot, the one that started all this. The one that shouldn't have hummed, but did. His fingers linger on it for a moment before letting go. "For you," he says. "So you don't forget that someone noticed." You feel something tighten in your throat. You nod, unable to say much beyond a quiet, "Thank you." He turns, heading toward the river, where the barge waits. It creaks gently in the water, a tethered promise of distant places. You watch him go until he's just a figure against the sky, until the curve of the river swallows him up, and the only trace left is the ripple in the water and the soft crunch of sand underfoot. Malik stands beside you now, arms crossed, squinting at the horizon. "Do you think he'll tell them the truth?" he asks. You look down at the pot in your hands, feel its warmth, its weight, the story it carries, the story you carry. "I think," you say slowly, "he'll tell them a truth." Malik nods, as if that's good enough. And maybe it is, because the real truth, the one that matters, doesn't live in scrolls or tallies or tribute lists. It lives here, in the soot on your hands, the lean of a pot against the wind, the smell of smoke after rain, the sound of frogs in the night, and the rustle of reeds when the wind shifts. The memory of a friend who saw something worth writing down. You turn back toward the kiln. The buffalo snorts, the ducks resume their sideways march, and someone shouts about the stew burning. Again, life goes on, and so do you, because the clay is waiting, the fire is waiting, the story is waiting, and you have work to do. The days pass slowly now, not slow like boredom, slow like a river in the dry season, gentle and sure, with time enough to notice the way dust dances in sunlight, or how the paint cracks on a pot when it's left in the sun too long. The scribe is gone. The buffalo has finally lost most of its blue paint, though there's a faint smudge on its ear that no one's bothered to wash off. The ducks still wander sideways, as if retracing steps only they understand. You think they know something you don't, and honestly, you're fine with that. You spend your mornings at the kiln, firing, stacking, watching the glow. It's not glamorous. It never was. There's no ceremony left, no festival drums or chants, Just the low, steady crackle of heat and the faint hiss of air moving through clay. But there's a comfort in that quiet. The kind of comfort that comes from knowing a task by heart. When to feed the fire, when to leave it alone, when to lift the pot from the ashes and feel its weight settle into your hands like a story told without words. Zahi started making pots shaped like animals now. Frogs, fish, even a buffalo that looks deeply unimpressed. He claims they're charms. You think they're an excuse to avoid making proper storage jars. Malik has taken to carving symbols into the handles of his pots. Tiny spirals, suns, fish bones. He says it helps them remember where they came from. You don't ask if he means the clay or the potters. Probably both. Aunt Dura, meanwhile, has declared herself the official clay quality inspector, and now carries a stick she uses to poke questionable pots. She hasn't explained the criteria. You suspect she's making it up as she goes along. It seems to be working. You try not to think about the scribe much. But sometimes, when you're smoothing the lip of a pot or watching smoke curl into the sky, you wonder if he kept his promise. If he told them the story of a village that hums when the pots are fired. A place that isn't just numbers and tribute, but the weight of hands in clay, the ache in a potter's back, the laughter in the dark when the fire pops, and no one's sure if it's the kiln or a frog on mischief duty. Probably they didn't listen. Probably they won't understand. But that's not your job, is it? Your job is here, in the kiln yard, with Malik's off-key flute, and Zahi's animal pots, and Aunt Dura's judgment stick. And the scrape of clay under your nails, and the way the ground holds the heat long after the fire's gone out. You sit one evening by the kiln, watching the embers fade, and think about the pot he left behind. It still hums, sometimes. Or maybe it's just the wind. You can't tell anymore. But you like to think it's singing a little lullaby, soft and low, barely a whisper, just for you. You close your eyes, let the warmth seep into your skin, and breathe. Because this is enough. This moment, this place, this life. You'll make more pots tomorrow, and the next day, and the one after that. Because that's what you do. You shape the clay, you stoke the fire, and you listen for the hum. The river recedes slowly, as it always does, as if it never intended to stay, but only to remind you who's really in charge here. The floodwaters pull back, leaving behind damp soil, tangled reeds, and the faint scent of silt and possibility. The village shifts with the season. People patch walls, scrape mud from doorways, and hang new mats to dry in the sun. The children wander barefoot through the soft, wet earth, collecting bits of driftwood and the occasional lost sandal, yours probably. You gave up on it 2 floods ago. You walk the paths with a quiet smile. The air feels different, lighter maybe, or just cleaner after the rain. The buffalo snorts at you as you pass, its ear still smudged with that stubborn streak of festival blue. A duck waddles by with a twig in its mouth, looking far too pleased with itself. You stop by the riverbank, watching the water murmur past. It's lower now, slower, more of a whisper than a roar. You think about all it carried this season. Frogs, fish, pots, maybe a few secrets, and all it left behind keyed. Your fingers trace the edge of a small pot resting on a flat stone nearby. It's one of yours. Simple. Unpainted. Barely fired enough to keep its shape. A practice piece, left here weeks ago. The rain smoothed its edges. The sun baked it unevenly. And now it sits, half forgotten, half claimed by the river's memory. You pick it up. It hums. Not loud. Not the mysterious, almost magical hum of the festival pot. Just a soft, familiar echo, like a breath held in clay, like it remembers your hands. You hold it close for a moment, feeling the warmth seep into your palms and then set it back down on the stone. You don't need to keep it. It's part of the story now. Part of the river. Part of the place. Back in the village, Zahi is teaching the children how to make frog pots. They're terrible at it. The frogs look like lumpy pears with eyes, and you love every single one. Malik is carving a new flute. This one has 5 holes. He says it's for a more sophisticated sound. You'll believe it when you hear it. Aunt Dura is arguing with herself over the best way to store dried figs. She insists the buffalo has opinions on the matter. You do not question her. The kiln stands quietly in the center of it all, soot-dark and warm in the afternoon sun. Its mouth gapes slightly open, waiting for the next batch, the next story, the next hands to shape something that might survive a season, a lifetime, or maybe, if the river is kind, a little longer. You sit on the edge of the yard, watching the shadows stretch, the ducks waddle, the smoke curl lazily into the sky. And you feel it. That quiet, steady hum, not from a pot, not from the kiln, from the village itself, from the lives layered together like clay coils, soft and imperfect and strong, from the stories whispered into the earth, from the hands that shape, the fires that transform, the river that takes and gives back. From you. You exhale slowly, letting the breath settle deep in your chest, and smile. This is home. This is the story. And it's still being written, one pot at a time. The light fades. The village quiets. You feel the weight of the day settle into your bones, the kind that aches but also sings a little. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into the end together. The stars blink awake overhead. The fire dies low, and the world softens. Your eyes grow heavy. The sounds fade into a blur. The gentle crackle of the kiln, the quiet snuffle of the buffalo, the soft rustle of reeds in the breeze. The story hums, the story waits, and you sleep.